This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. Tornadoes are popping up all over the United States of America, and this is obviously not normal weather. Again, this weekend, we have major weather warnings from all the way down in Texas, all the way up to Green Bay and Minnesota. Now, this is something we have to keep an eye on because weaponized weather is the most dangerous weather imaginable, because the government could do this day in and day out, blame it on climate change, and no civilians will have a clue, no civilians will hold anybody accountable, and they could destroy properties. And again, remember, they want to destroy infrastructure. They want to build a new infrastructure. People don't seem to understand what that means. That means that everything else has to be demolished. Buildings, everything has, we always hear about buildings being up to code and all this stuff. Everything has to be demolished because everything is going to be run through artificial intelligence, which means they have to build out new buildings. They want people's homes to be built out with AI and smart home technology so that they can have control over all of the devices inside of your home. People just don't realize the government has this capability. And one of the things they need to do is look at this weather and realize that this is not normal. These are not normal weather patterns. Look at some of the clips from the news that aired in the last 24 hours. Some of the clips are frightening. They don't even look like real tornadoes. They're like super tornadoes. They're like something you would think would be created in a laboratory. And guess what? These things are being created in a laboratory. They're being created out in the open, in their open laboratory, where they shoot rays into the ionosphere, and everybody out there goes, I don't know what they're doing at HAARP. I don't know what they're doing with all these other weather modification devices that they have rolled out across the country. But I can't assume that they're doing that because that technology isn't real. Oh, no, it's not. Well, I'll prove to you that it is real. But let's start with what's going on around the country.
And Jesse, this is hitting a wide area of the country.
That's right, Lester. Millions of Americans are in the bullseye tonight, including where we are in Kansas City, Missouri. You can see wind gusts are starting to pick up here. Meanwhile, there have already been some tornadoes in other states, leaving behind a path of destruction.
Tonight, a tornado outbreak is unfolding across Nebraska. Over a dozen twisters already reported, with more severe weather on the way. In the Lincoln, Nebraska area, debris seen swirling as this violent tornado ripped across an interstate. Elsewhere, some drivers heading towards the ominous skies.
Something's just been hit.
And this Omaha neighborhood seeming to take a direct hit.
The entire down the street, there's no houses down there. Up the street, there's no houses either.
It just took everything in about 5-10 minutes and it's gone.
Tornadoes also reported around Waco, Texas today.
It looks like lots of sheet metal in the air.
And further south in Austin, inbound flights were temporarily grounded because of thunderstorms. This same storm system has been stretching across the U.S. since yesterday. In Oklahoma, this semi-truck flipped over as this Colorado home was damaged.
It's so awful it happened.
Now, Kansas City, Omaha, Tulsa, and Des Moines are bracing for more storms overnight. NBC's Marissa Parra is in Oklahoma.
Residents here in central Oklahoma woke up to tornado sirens, found parts of the rooftops flung onto the street, even onto cars nearby.
And the threats are only expected to increase tomorrow over an even larger area, with 33 million people in the path of severe weather from the Great Lakes to Texas. That means more tornadoes, flooding, hail, and strong winds are all possible on Saturday. And there's also severe weather in Sunday's forecast as we head into a weekend that for some will bring little relief.
Talk to you in just a little bit. We got to get into this. This is a massive wedge tornado that's just taken over an entire interstate. I've never seen anything like this. We're going to come back, check with you. I know you're chasing this as well. And there has been, sadly, major damage out of this. And so we'll check in with you. Thank you for all the hard work. We got to get into this team and look at this. If we can, let's start telestrating over and showing you Brett Adair. This is now in Harlan, Iowa. We were showing you that city. It was just to the west of there. Look at this. This thing right here that you're witnessing in front of you is a tornado. I know it's tough to even fathom. While talking to Corey, look at by the way, in the foreground, the wind speed. You see this SUV that's kicking up the water. If we can drop the banner, team, real quickly. Destructive tornado is tearing through Nebraska. Look at how fast the wind is spinning that off the road. That's speaking to the violent nature this far removed from the tornado. Imagine being in that tornado, though, and what's ahead of this.
Steve, look at that tree ahead of that car and how it's leaning.
It's just snapped, right, to the side. Ken, I don't know even how to talk about this right now. We're looking at this on telly. This right here is showing you how wide. So it goes from here to here. All of this in between is a tornado, a wedge tornado that is coming down as of right now. And as we zoom in, look at this. This is showing you that inflow and how the wind is just getting sucked in like a vacuum. I mean, I've never seen anything this large before, and it's tough to fathom that this would be classified as a tornado.
You got to love how they're talking about this, and they're like, this is not normal, but it's the new normal, right? I've never seen tornadoes like this. I've never seen a tornado even form in a shape like that. That's because it's not normal. That's because these are man-made weather events. And these man-made weather events are more severe, more deadly than any atomic bomb threat that you could possibly imagine, because they can do this on a day in, day out basis. These tornadoes are now sitting across Central America as we speak. And for those of you wondering, if you're watching what's going on, last week, the week before, we were hearing about this occurring in this same exact location, going from Texas all the way up. And we have to keep in mind how important that area is for growing our country's crops. Yes, California grows a lot of our crops, but the Midwest, and specifically if you go from Texas, you're talking about the Texas Panhandle, which is the third largest supplier, 33%, I think 35% of our cattle supply comes from there. Then you have Illinois in the line of fire, Iowa in the line of fire, Nebraska in the line of fire, Minnesota in the line of fire. These are some of our most crops come out of locations like this, in addition to Kansas, etc. But we're talking about not just crop contamination, soil erosion, equipment loss, right? Permanent damage being done, right? Because these farms are getting hit. And people out there just go, oh yeah, well the crops are going to get destroyed. All right, well they'll grow new crops. Well, we're talking about the equipment loss, okay, contamination as well, and the spread of invasive species from all of the flooding, right? Because you think about these crops that are going to be underwater. And I'll show you some clips now. If you didn't see some of the clips that people filmed around this country over the last 24 hours showing you these weather phenomena, which are just completely, obviously man-made and manipulated. You can see some of the hailstorms. You could see just the way that some of these tornadoes are running amok. And these are, the hailstorms themselves are going to leave inches and inches and inches of water that's not going to be able to get drained out. These crops are going to be destroyed. The soil is going to be destroyed. And these farms are likely not going to be able to be used again anytime soon. So take a look at some of the actual footage that people filmed and uploaded of these weather phenomenons.
Turn back. We're fine. There's J-Jack. Wow. Semi's overturned up here. Hey, let's get up to the sky real quick. Yeah, let's go see. I got the med kit in the car if you need it. Put it on your hazard right now. Keep filming that. You guys will help. Yeah, I got it. You two are on the left side. Watch out for oncoming planes. We've got... No. Wow. We've got hazards on. All right. Oh my God. He's okay, he's okay.
And again, now it's important for people to understand that the government has the capability to do this. We need to get past the point where people go, that's crazy, that's a conspiracy. They tell us they don't know what's going on at HAARP, etc. We need to get past that point, okay? And what just happened in Dubai should get people to go, all right, wait a minute. I wasn't informed of this before, even though they should have been, because people like us have been screaming about it. They've talked about it openly, and go watch a Vietnam documentary about Operation Popeye. Oh, they have the ability to create monsoons, right? And then that's it. People just stop thinking. Then when you hear all these stories about droughts and crops and rain, our water supply drying up, some of these lakes drying up, wouldn't you say to yourself, well, why wouldn't the government use that technology? Well, they don't really want you to know it exists, but they don't expect you to even think at this point. So for you to even think that they could use this type of weather modification that they have to our advantage, well, you're out of your mind. Because the government would never do that. They would never use this to our advantage. They'd only use it to their advantage. And now that they've brainwashed people with the climate agenda for the last, they've been doing it since the 70s, but it's really been ingrained in people's heads. So much so, you see people, these young generations, they are so lost. I feel bad for them, but it's very easy to get angry at these people. They're like unhinged spazoids. They yell and they scream about the climate, and they won't vote unless, first they think their vote counts. Then on top of that, they sit there and they think, they think to themselves that all the things the government's telling them about the climate is actually occurring, but they have no understanding of weather modification, weather manipulation, which is what the governments around the world have been trying to perfect for a long period of time. And they've perfected it for a long period of time. Okay? They will not use this type of, being able to weaponize the weather, create rain and cloud seed, aka geoengineer. They would never use it to our advantage. They're using it to destroy. They're also using it to herd. They're going to drown out areas. They're going to put places underwater that they want underwater. And they're going to force us all into these cities. And everybody out there thinks that it's a crazy conspiracy. So I say to them this, and I'll play some clips for you now, so you can have a better understanding of this. Because I covered this a few weeks ago when I was talking about St. Louis specifically. Okay? Everybody thinks the St. Louis Arch, they look at it like, wow, the St. Louis Arch. What is this? Is it so artistic and creative? Somebody just built this thing? What does it look like? Just looks like a giant horseshoe. Everyone's like, wow, yeah, I'm going to go to St. Louis so I can go and see the arch. They're so dumbed down. They don't even realize that device itself is used for weather modification. And we're seeing this all around St. Louis, which tells us it's likely coming directly out of there. Okay? We've seen other devices, other things that they have sitting around, and people think these things are like just giant satellites, right? We know about HAARP, and we've seen all the pictures of HAARP, but I mean, these are some of the other devices that they use for waves, to create these waves that could penetrate everything. Okay, they're electromagnetic pulses that they're using. They could start fires. They could start tornadoes very easily, as we're seeing. They could start earthquakes. We've given them the ability to do this. And then I say to everybody out there listening, okay, no matter what your political affiliation is, and I know people who listen to my channel aren't dumb enough to believe in political sides, but if you are, hey, time to wake up and come out of her. Time to wake up and realize your vote don't count. They're keeping you trapped in parties so that the people don't rise up against this wicked, tyrannical government that's already in place. Okay? Do the people in power show you that they give a crap about you? It's very clear the answer is no. Look at the opposite political party then, if you aren't feeling it from your own party, and you should be able to say, you know what, I don't trust these people. Nobody should trust these people. They are using weaponized weather while they're distracting us with all this other nonsense, and then propaganda, programming us into thinking that it's climate change. I'm going to show you some clips now so you get a better perspective of this if you're new to all of it. I always use this clip that Disney, which is a branch of the CIA, which I know to people, they're like, I can't believe that. Right underneath Disney, the entire thing is a CIA base. All of these kids that go through Disney, at least they used to, and the Disney programming are programmed into being influencers. They're MK Ultra. A lot of them are beta program. They're complete government operatives. They're assets to the government, from Britney Spears to Shia LaBeouf to Ryan Gosling to Christina Aguilera. Justin Timberlake, all these people who are famous, very famous right now, are influencing your behavior. They go through Disney. So it's not just that, though. It's not just the children that go through Disney. Disney is a branch of the CIA. They're obviously in everybody's living room, programming their children. Parents out there don't even realize they're programming their kids with magic. They're like, I didn't grow up to be a witch, so I'm going to play all the movies I watched when I was a kid. Snow White, and say, oh, is that about magic? Oh, Beauty and the Beast, is that about magic? Oh, right, it is. Can I go on and on and on? Yeah, I can, because every single Disney cartoon, for the most part, maybe with the exception of Lion King, has something to do with magic, okay? So Disney put this out, which you would think, you go, why would Disney put this out? Talking openly about weather modification. I'll play a couple other clips, including John F. Kennedy talking about the rush, the rush to get the ability to control the weather back in 1961. It is 2024. We're talking over 60 years ago, okay? Talking about this. Oh, they've got the ability to do it, and you're seeing them do it right now. But again, is a boogeyman in place. They created the climate agenda, not just to enslave us, but so that they can get away with what they're doing right now. And they've brainwashed you with quotes and things like you can't control the weather, you can't predict the weather, all this stuff. Nobody thinks ahead of time how the government can forecast these weather storms because they're creating these storms and then telling you that they're coming, okay? That's how. These things are being done by the government. Here's a bunch of clips if you don't understand how this works.
Mr. President, honored delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control. We shall propose, finally, a global systems of communication satellites linking the whole world in telegraph and telephone and radio and television. The day need not be far away when such a system will televise the proceedings of this body to every corner of the world for the benefit of peace.
Bloomfield, Michigan, 1942.
These are forces at work that could wipe out major cities.
The world of tomorrow and the instruments of science which are shaping it may seem remote and fantastic, but yesterday's fantasies are becoming today's facts. How will these great advances influence and benefit our personal lives? Here in this film is an answer. Sweeping through an eternal vacuum, through blazing heat and bitter cold, exposed to mysterious radiation, man-made satellites circle the Earth. Traveling at fantastic speeds, these eyes in outer space give us knowledge for future exploration, and also vital information that will lead to a better understanding of one of nature's great forces, the weather. With awesome violence and destruction, the weather is one of man's oldest and mightiest adversaries. But in its ever-changing moods, the weather brings us beauty. The weather gives us our daily bread. The weather makes possible all living things. And the weather certainly influences our daily lives. Yes, we have always been at the mercy of weather. When the weather is nice, we are happy. If the weather is hot and muggy, we tend to be frustrated, irritable, and even criminal. But if the fog rolls in, we are apt to be depressed. Thunderstorms cause fear and apprehension. Icy winds and snow seem to slow us down. In trying to predict these capricious changes in weather, we sometimes resort to rather questionable weather forecasting devices, such as an almanac, a crystal ball, a gouty leg, and the law of average.
April showers bring May flowers. When mule ears shake in a certain way, it means that rain will fall that day. If a spider you should slay, rain will fall within a day. It's a sign of rain and snow when the birds and bugs fly low. As the weather is on New Year's Day, for 30 days 'twill stay that way. As the weather is on January 2, for February and September the same holds true. As the weather is on January 3, so the last 3 months of spring will be. As the weather is on November 21, so the coming winter's one. So, as the coming winter has a New Year's Day, and if the fine weather holds its sway, the weather's bound to stay that way forever, ever, and a day.
Well, no matter how we try to predict the weather, of this we can be certain. It will always be with us. To understand it, let's look into any ocean, lake, pond, or puddle. Here in this watery world, cool and calm as can be, lives this damp little drip floating peacefully. But when the heat's on, the sun comes out. The rays, they agitate him, make him jump about. Well, he gets all shook. Look out, stand back. He's going to blow his stack. The drip evaporates, and then he's joined by his friends. They're together again. They float up high on the moist, warm air. We can't see them, but they're still there. They fly way up where the cold's intense, then back into droplets. They condense, and that's what makes a cloud. But when too many droplets crowd a cloud, that crowded cloud, he cries out loud. That's the way we get the rain. Well, look who's here, the little drip again. Back in the puddle. Heat. Beat. Rise. Skies. And that's what makes a cloud. This time those drops are blasted high. Still higher, still colder. Look at them fly. One turns to ice, and others stick to it, getting bigger and bigger. Look out! I knew it! It's way too heavy! It's falling! Wow! The little drip's a hailstone now. He's back just where he was before, and the whole thing's ready to start once more. This constantly repeating cycle of weather may seem capricious and without direction, but throughout nature there is order. Weather is a constant blending of the basic elements: air, water, and sun. It all starts with the sun. This tremendous white-hot ball of gas, 750,000 miles across, supplies the power that drives our weather machine. The sun is a gigantic atomic furnace, consuming itself at the rate of billions of pounds of matter per second. Across its boiling surface drift mysterious spots. Solar flares surge in flashes of raw energy. Writhing, flaming clouds of incandescent hydrogen gas explode hundreds of thousands of miles into space. The sun is absolutely essential to life on our planet. Our Earth is surrounded by an envelope of air. Radiant energy, constantly pouring out from the sun, heats the Earth and its atmosphere unevenly from pole to equator, setting in motion broad flowing rivers of air. Wherever opposing currents of air develop, giant eddies and whirlpools are formed. These are traveling areas of low pressure in the atmosphere. The clash of these opposing air streams causes clouds to form and usually brings stormy weather. Between the areas of low pressure, there are eddies rotating in the opposite direction. Here, air pressure is high. This usually brings clear skies and fair weather. By charting their positions each day, weathermen can estimate the course they will take and the weather that will result. Keeping track of the steady parade of storms and fair weather requires the constant preparation of new maps. This is a never-ending task. Weathermen must construct these maps from a continuous flow of data that pours in from weather stations all over the world. In remote, isolated areas, in crowded cities, in high-flying aircraft, and in ships at sea, modern weathermen depend on a variety of specialized instruments to gather information. They measure temperature, moisture, air pressure, and wind speed. Balloons carry instruments aloft, automatically radioing back information. New radar techniques locate and track storms. And modern electronic computers now play an important part in weather forecasting by their ability to store and rapidly process vast amounts of data. But today, we are just beginning to understand something of the forces behind the weather. Scientists realize they must search in many directions and ask countless questions. For instance, can future weather be predicted by looking at the past? Does the slow advance and retreat of glaciers over periods of centuries indicate cycles in the Earth's climate? Past records of bird and animal migration, or the migrations of man, may furnish clues. And even ancient tree rings give an indication of wet and dry periods. The vast unexplored polar regions of the Earth pose another kind of question. What effect do these frigid areas, covering millions of square miles, have on the weather of the entire world? Auroras, the ghostly lights that flicker in polar skies, tell something of what happens when energy from the sun plunges into the sea of air that surrounds the Earth. Adventurous scientists are probing the atmosphere itself, climbing to incredible altitudes in their search for knowledge. New scientific tools are being used, rockets launched from balloons. And rockets launched from the ground carry instruments higher and higher. Unfortunately, these flights last but a short time, and only a small amount of information can be obtained. But now we have more advanced scientific devices for gathering data continuously over long periods of time, not only from the atmosphere, but from space beyond. Artificial satellites. Satellites reach into the unknown with instruments that duplicate man's own senses. The eye of the satellite is a photocell or a radiation counter. Its ear, a tiny microphone. Its memory, a tape recorder. And its voice is a radio transmitter. Here, these instruments are placed in an actual weather satellite, designed to record the cloud formations covering the Earth. In this cross-section view, we see how all the instruments have been reduced to an amazingly compact unit weighing but a few pounds. Here is one of the electronic eyes of the satellite. This eye converts the light reflected from land, ocean, and cloud into electrical impulses. These impulses from the eyes are changed into electronic signals that are recorded by this tiny tape machine. Recording continuously for periods of nearly an hour, this incredibly small instrument remembers everything the weather satellite sees. Triggered by a radio signal from Earth, the recorder plays back the stored information in only 1 minute. These precious reports on the Earth's cloud patterns are received by specially designed stations on the ground. The radio signals from the satellite are now converted back to a moving pattern of light on the oscilloscope, and finally translated into a picture of the cloud formations the satellite has seen during one trip around the Earth. Today's weather satellites are small and are designed to do a limited job. However, they are the first step forward to larger and more versatile space explorers of tomorrow. These future satellites will be the key to precise forecasting and control of weather. Let us project our present knowledge with a little imagination and speculate on how satellites might be used in future operations from a worldwide weather center. This is the master control room. Electronic maps and view screens display up-to-the-minute pictures of the weather around the Earth. Every hour, reports are automatically received from all points at sea, on land, and in the air. 22,000 miles out in space, 3 robot satellites train their sensitive television eyes on all parts of the Earth. These pictures are monitored on viewing screens in the Weather Center. Here in the computing room, electronic machines digest the constant flood of information received from all stations. This is then translated into an ever-changing diagram of the Earth's weather. Forecasts for every sector of the globe are made months in advance. Prediction charts have indicated that a powerful hurricane will begin forming today in the Atlantic Ocean. The electronic weather map shows an intense storm system building up about 1,000 miles due east of Miami, Florida. The controller calls for a close-up satellite view of the troubled area.
Coordinates. Coco 526, Yankee 2.5.
Okay, controller. Coco 526, Yankee 2.5.
The characteristic swirling clouds of the hurricane are beginning to form. At sea, the waves anticipate the violence to come. The controller calls for a last-minute prediction of the hurricane's path. If control measures are not begun at once, the hurricane will smash across densely populated areas within 48 hours.
11 a.m. EST. A hurricane is forming 960 miles east of Miami, Florida. If control measures are ineffective, it will pass inland at Cape Hatteras in 48 hours. Control operations will begin within 2 hours, but safety precautions should be completed from Cape Fear, north no later than 6 p.m. tomorrow.
At Weather Central, the control strategy is mapped out. A ridge of high pressure slants across the eastern United States between two low-pressure storm systems. If these two storm centers are intensified, the high will build up along the coast, forming a barrier that will turn the hurricane out to sea.
Stand by. Now pulling in satellite number 1 for visual check of low-pressure systems L20 and L21.
The operator brings the satellite into focus on the two storms, one centered over Kansas, the other over Labrador.
Changing to northeastern low, L21.
With a touch of a button, the battle begins. On the ground, chemical cloud seeders begin to work the two storm areas. Robot planes seed the clouds from above. The storm centers over Kansas and over Labrador intensify as seeding continues.
Now changing over to Hurricane Center H8.
The fury of the hurricane mounts as 100-mile-an-hour winds lash the sea to a foaming frenzy.
All stations, Sector C. Activate Phase 2, Control Plan Delta. Set vapor rockets for 42,000 feet.
As an emergency measure, the controller calls for a salvo of vapor rockets to be fired ahead of the path the hurricane is predicted to take. These artificial clouds will block the sun from evaporating more water to feed the hurricane. The reports coming into the control center indicate that the diversionary cloud seeding over Kansas is now creating a flood danger. Specially equipped robot aircraft are dispatched immediately to release a high concentration of cloud seeding material into the fringes of the storm. Heavier seeding from the ground also helps to subdue the rain by spreading it over a wider area. The controller calls for another view of the hurricane, which has now moved closer to the coast.
Signal out on number 1 satellite. 10-minute interruption for correction. Have you anything else in the area?
Satellite station S1 is approaching area. We'll make contact. S1, this is Weather Central. Request video signal at grid coordinates COCO.
An emergency situation has developed. In an orbiting space station 1,000 miles above the hurricane, a crewman sends a temporary picture back to Weather Central.
Okay, S1, your video is R5S5. Thank you.
The hurricane has stopped moving toward the coast, but is still intensifying. It must be made to move northward and out to sea. This is a crisis.
Aberdeen Station, activate multiple seeding rockets on course 117.
The controller decides to fire cloud seeding rockets just ahead of the hurricane, hoping to start it moving. Slowly, the hurricane begins to shift. All available forces have been brought into play. Now we can only watch and wait. After hours of tension, the turning point is reached. Latest reports indicate the control strategy is successful. At last, the high-pressure ridge has settled along the coast, forming an invisible wall of safety. The storm is over. The danger has passed. The hurricane has been defeated, turned away from the land, and left to spend itself harmlessly far out at sea. In the world of tomorrow, weather control will enrich and safeguard our daily lives. In the foreseeable future, we will conquer more than violent storms. We will turn the destructive elements of today into new sources of power, shaping the land on which we live. All mankind will benefit. Arid wastelands will be made green and fertile, and vast frozen areas will become productive. To this end, man-made satellites will probe the secrets of the skies. They will be our eyes in outer space.
So again, anybody out there, look at the phenomenon of the weather. Look at this pattern. We become so desensitized. Are people that desensitized? They're just like, oh, the weather's been crazy. Oh yeah, you've heard of tornado warnings going from Texas all the way up to Minnesota? Are you joking with me? I mean, 1/3 of the country right now is under tornado advisory. I mean, and these don't even, like some of the clips you saw, they don't even look like tornadoes. They're giant tornadoes. They're the size of like 20 tornadoes in one. They're GMO tornadoes, right? They're wide enough to go across, counties is what we're seeing. This is weather modification, okay? So now if you understand the fact that they have the ability to do it, you have to say to yourself, well, can I accept the fact that they're wicked enough to do this? Well, governments are wicked enough to go to war, right? Governments go to war and people go, I don't agree. They go to war, they kill these people. You just couldn't, nobody could wrap their heads around the government going to war with their own civilians. That's what they can't wrap their heads around. Now, if the government actually tried to wage war with their military against the civilians would win, no matter how high tech and high powered everything they have is. But they would never do that anyway, even if they could wipe us out. Because they want you to be compliant to this new world order. They want you to be compliant. So eventually they're going to come in as the heroes who stop all the weather, right, with our carbon emissions. That's the solution that scientists get. Oh, there's not going to be tornadoes, all this stuff, if we all stay inside every single day, because our carbon emissions and our carbon footprint is what's causing all of this. So lock yourself inside, okay? And then we're supposed to be thankful that Big Brother is saving the day when they're the ones causing all the problems. They're the ones causing war. They're the ones causing, they talk about the mental health crisis. They're causing it with 5G. They're causing it with what they're doing with technology and social media. They're the ones causing all the division every single day. All the news does is report on how racist everybody is, how horrible people are. They're doing all of this. And ultimately, no one's going to figure it out. And they're going to be thrilled when the government comes in after they're exhausted from all this. And they say, look, there won't be tornadoes anymore, we promise. Because they won't hit you with tornadoes as much. That's what they'll promise you. If you obey, if you stay inside, if you get an electric vehicle, if you turn your home over to all the smart technology, and you let the government manage your thermostat, you let the government manage how often you turn your oven on and how often you shower, all those things. And you won't even realize you're a prisoner. They'll be smiling at you as all this is going on. And people will be like, I'm so glad that the government's come in and stepped in and done this. So the problem that people have is accepting this. I just showed you that, there's so much stuff you could look at with patents and HAARP and all these other things that they use to weaponize the weather. The hardest part for people to grasp at this point isn't that the technology exists. It's that the people who have the power to do this are doing it to us. They don't want to believe it. And Christians out there don't want to believe it either, because they don't want to think that Satan and his minions have this type of power. They just did, how many people comment and ignore it, and they go, God's the one doing this. God's the one doing this. God's the one causing all the tornadoes. It's his, it's his wrath. He's holding people accountable. And I get that perspective, but you need to understand that this isn't the most insane technology imaginable, okay? If you think about how it works and how they can use these frequencies and these waves and play with the electromagnetic field, which again, Satan is the prince of the power of the air, for them to create and do this stuff. So then people just go, I can't think that the government would ever do this to me. Well, maybe the outbreak should be enough to wake some people up. Now, I know Democrats out there are still completely clueless to what's going on. And that's, of course, because they don't freely think. They don't freely think. Now, I don't know how anybody could become a Democrat. I just don't understand. Because these people they're the type of people that would be in bed with a serial killer, find out that the guy was a serial killer and still be like, nah, and still defend him on trial, even though they probably found 50 bodies underneath the house. They'd be like, he didn't do it. Somebody else put him there. They're the kind of people they are. They're so naive and they refuse to believe reality, right? But the reality is this. The government on both sides is completely corrupt. They're completely rogue. They're using weather modification. This has been the plan for a long time to hit us with this. They are hurting us and moving us with these storms. Like I covered recently, if you didn't see the video I did on FEMA recently, FEMA is using our tax money to buy out people's property who are in flood zones. They're literally moving us where they want to move us. Factor in the national divorce narrative of different laws and rules in red and blue states and how they're gaslighting people into leaving states because these states aren't aligning with their politics anymore. And you want to talk about government overreach and nobody's saying anything about that. It's unbelievable. And the next round of mandates is going to work even better for them because people like us are going to go, wow, how is anyone dumb enough to fall for this? And then we're going to go, they're not going to let us go to the grocery store unless all right, now we have no choice but to go. Instead of actually starting a revolution, they're going to go, well, look, we don't need a revolution. The red states aren't enforcing this. Trump's not enforcing it, right? DeSantis isn't enforcing this. Let's go to their states. And they're not going to realize they're going to be sitting ducks for this type of technology, okay? And it's going to continue on and on and on. And they're going to brainwash the people probably in the Democrat states and say, look, these people aren't following the carbon footprint regulations that we have. Look what's happening to them. They're getting drilled. All these storms just are hitting these spots. And nobody will think twice about weather manipulation and weather control. They've got it. They're using it. And they're using it full force right now. Prayers for anybody affected by these things. These are the types of things that people don't seem to care that much about. You could destroy somebody's life in the blink. You know, ripping your roof off, killing your family, killing, if you have a farm, killing your crops. It's sick, but these people are beyond sick. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.